They needed a huge showing at the long jump if they ever expected to hoist the Walnut Cup. The rules here are pretty self-explanatory. You gotta jump from this platform and make it all the way to the sand pit, and the team with the most successful jumps wins. Rick is the first one up, and you can see he's really struggling to calculate the trajectory and to do the math in his head to make the jump work. But eventually he chooses to just go for it and to put his trust not in the math, but in himself. Which was the wrong choice. Next up is Augustine, and knowing what's at stake here, she musters an uncharacteristic amount of resolve and just goes full send, sticking a perfect landing. Jump attempt, but it's like, dude, Crow, you have wings. That's not impressive. Up next is Marty, who knows he needs to land this to keep them in contention. So for motivation, he calls upon an extremely rare alternating double arm flex. And with a big leap,
恭请9天玄女驾到800英尺，降到。
And finally, there's Fat Gus, who has to land this jump to keep their dreams alive. And while as Marty seeks motivation from the power flex, Fat Gus seeks motivation from the power nap, after which, a hush falls over the backyard.
Here's the approach. And the launch.
Wait, did she get it?
Yes, she did!
Oh my gosh,
good! Bang the pots and bring in the melon ballers! That was truly incredible! Oh my, have you ever seen anything like that before in your life? No? Me neither!
And so as Fat Gus sits there enjoying the sweet taste of victory with their first points on the board, Rick realizes his hopes for redemption through a tiebreaker round are dashed as he shows himself down and heads to the next event, which happens to be the Nutcracker. Now for the Nutcracker, the gold medal goes to the first contestant to somehow open, then eat the actual nut in the walnut shell. And once again, prep work for this very moment started at a young age. At Walnut Estates, admittedly there was some confusion as to how this event works, but with a little bit of teamwork, they eventually figured it out. Over at Hubcap Hills, you can see things were predictably less bougie, so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. After heading over from the long jump, Rick comes in strong, but then freezes up as he tries to remember how they did this as kids. And after seemingly drawing a blank, he just decides to go ask Marty. He was up next, and having just coached Rick through this, he knows exactly what to do. Oh, Marty with a nice fumble recovery. But after finding the exact perfect way to hold the shell, he takes the walnut out of bounds and decides to go off and bury it with the rug, so there's no possible way Rick's ever gonna find it. Fat Gus is up next, and to the surprise of no one, removes, then shells the walnut in record time, like a true professional. And then finally there's Augustine, who takes a completely different approach, but it still counts, which gives Hubcap Hills a clear and decisive win, keeping their dreams alive and building on their momentum. Which brings us to the penultimate challenge in the backyard games, the Thunderdome, with 2 tubes that lead in from platforms on either side. And the rules here are pretty simple. Basically, the contender, who's the last squirrel standing in the dome, takes home the gold. Now at this point, it probably won't surprise you to learn that both homes had quite a bit of wrestling in them growing up. And while Marty's favorite move was the piano slide to the surfboard, Fat Gus's go-to move was definitely the tail grab. So it'll be interesting to see what strategies carry over to today. And so after setting it out in the yard for a bit, the first on the scene was Fat Gus, who was somewhat intrigued, trying to figure out how to get inside, and after some amount of investigating, with only minor distractions and a quick power nap, the dome was breached. And Fat Gus was really enjoying time in the Thunderdome. That is, until a certain bully rat decided to show up. Fat Tail! And at first you can see Fat Gus stands by sort of helpless, as Fat Tail comes in and starts stealing all the reclaims the throne with comes the bull lead, and he's kicked off the platform, never to return again. And after that moment, you could just tell there was a newfound confidence. This was Fat Gus's world, and we're all just living in it. I mean, not even the barking dogs were safe from this newfound bravado. And because all the other squirrels could see what was going on, it's no surprise that anytime the king showed up to the Thunderdome, things cleared out real quick. Which means Hubcap Hills took the gold, tying things up at 3-3, setting up the ultimate showdown in the final event to settle who would be the Backyard Games champions. And so this was it. The morning of the final competition had arrived, and you could sense the anticipation in the air throughout the neighborhood. Everything would come down to the high jump. So the competitors made their way over to the backyard, running through the training progressions in there. The mark of a true professional is being able to clear your mind, as you can see Augustine do here, as she then makes her way up to the platform. And Augustine starts out with what is arguably less of a jump and more of a hoist, but whatever. Rick went a bit quicker, but then got slowed down on his exit because he discovered he could see himself in the reflection, and he knows a handsome devil when he sees one. Which meant it would all come down to the highest high jump setting.
给我升到最高！哇，他把它升得那么高，上吊啊！
Rick went first, but after choosing a bad angle, things did not end well for him. Augustine used her meticulous planning to size things up and then deduced that the best way over was under. And while clever, it was a clear violation of the rules, so she was out too. That left Marty and Fat Gus to decide it all. And after a final flex to really hype himself up, Marty turned his attention to the platform, stepped up, and with a big effort, he did it! He actually pulled it off. Although he sort of grabbed the side to do it, so that meant if Fat Gus could go over clean without using the side, that would give the humble underdogs from Hub...
Well, okay. I guess that means Marty gets the gold, and that puts Walnut Estates to 4 gold medals, making them the official winners of the Backyard Games.
So, there you have it. I mean, you could see they're ecstatic, and rightfully so. It was a hard-fought and well-earned battle.
Wait a second, I'm getting some breaking news. Stand by for just a... Oh, no. What I've just heard has disturbed me deeply.
And that was the moment everything changed because of a bombshell revelation. Clue, we know that ever since he was young, his favorite spot for hiding stuff was under the rug, really being conducted at Walnut Estates by the authorities. And sure enough, a trapdoor was discovered, and after peeking inside, they found these. A couple of bags of Russian walnuts. And I probably don't need to tell you why, but in the Backyard Games, Russian walnuts are strictly prohibited. And so suddenly it made total sense why he was the only one strong enough to conquer the high jump. And you can imagine when the news leaked to the neighborhood just how utterly shocked everyone was.
Wow. This is disappointing on a molecular level. And I say that not just as a sportscaster, but as an American. Quite frankly, it's a disgrace to the integrity of the Backyard Games.
But on the bright side, it meant an adjustment had to be made.
This means their high jump gold medal goes to Hubcap Hills and makes Hubcap Hills the champions of the Backyard Summer Games.
And with the news of the reversal, you can see Fat Gus wasted no time making it down to the trophy, and Augustine was so happy, she just couldn't contain herself.
Well, okay. A lot of saliva on my mustache.
Actually, Fat Gus and Augustine took relocate their house to the Japanese maple down the street, with of course the addition of a conspicuous lawn ornament as a playful flex to their neighbors below. And speaking of their neighbors, they all eventually found it in their hearts to forgive Marty, cause that's just what good friends do. Which is all to say, in the end, they all lived in harmony, happily ever after. Well, except for Fat Tail. He did some hard time in the slammer, cause he's a jerk.